Welcome to Perfectly Imperfect with Beautiful Disaster. These are the stories of our tribe. They are important, powerful, and will undoubtedly change you.
We are live.
Yes, we are. Hopefully it's worked. I am so excited to announce, you guys, that we have such a special guest today on the Beautiful Disaster Facebook page with us. We have CHIARA Lisowski, and I watched her TED Talk. Boy, it's been several months now. We've had quite the time connecting and sorting out our schedules. So we're just so grateful, CHIARA, that you made time for us. And, for those of you just tuning in to our live right now, we are going to have an opportunity to listen to CHIARA's story. She is a survivor of domestic violence. It's a topic that we talk about a lot on the Beautiful Disaster platforms. And, we're just so grateful to have you, CHIARA. If you want to share a little bit about who you are and the fact that you're coming to us live from across the pond.
Okay, so thank you so much, Christy, for inviting me to talk live today. I feel very honored, and it's definitely really important to talk about domestic abuse or domestic violence because it's still very much taboo. And the more open we can be about it as a society, the more we can take responsibility for it and hopefully one day eradicate it. So thank you very much. About a little bit about me. So I'm CHIARA Lisowski. I was born in the UK. I live in the UK.
Yeah.
That's why we're across the pond. Quite a big time difference.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of part of a mixed family. So my mum's Italian, my dad's Polish heritage, and my husband is Spanish. So real massive mix in the house. And I speak a few different languages as well. And I've always liked traveling and music and arts and things. So I studied languages at university, and I suppose I've always been doing more or less creative things with my life.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your story. And I think it starts the way we think every fairy tale is going to start, right? With this tall, dark, and handsome man, right?
yeah, pretty much. So I was at university. I was studying abroad in Italy for my third year. So it was all quite an exciting time for me anyway. Everything was new. I'd kind of recently broke up with a boyfriend back in the UK, and I was like ready to take on the world. And yep, I met a tall, dark, handsome Brazilian artist who was really different to anyone I'd ever met before, and very talented, very good at everything, very confident, and he just blew me away, really. So I pretty much fell head over heels very, very quickly. And sort of, it was my final year of uni, nearly my final year of uni. So me having to then go back to the UK and then basically do a long distance relationship already from quite an intense start. I was like, this is going to work. I'll do anything for this guy. Right. And really, he was, funny and charming, and he was, like I said, talented, different to anyone I'd met, but he was also very moody. He was a little bit jealous. He was South American, so I put it down to the whole. I'm not generalizing I'm not trying to generalize a whole continent, but for me, I thought at the time, he's South American, he's a bit more passionate, like he's going to be a little bit more possessive. That's okay. And I felt like needed by that. I felt kind of wanted by that, and I thought that was okay. So there were alarm bells that I kind of pretty much ignored straight up.
Right.
I made excuses for them. I still ask myself why, but that's probably a whole psychoanalyst kind of journey that I need to do, which I'm not going to delve into that now, but, I still ask myself why sometimes. There were excuses. He didn't really like me having male friends. He didn't really like me having social media, Facebook. I ended up deleting it. He didn't really like he kind of questioned things, and I suddenly started to question myself. But it always was around the whole, he knew better for me, and he, really, really loved me, and he really thought, wanted the best for me. So it really convinced me, really kind of spun me in his web in a way.
Sure.
So then from that point on, I moved to Brazil, where he moved back to. So we were long distancing, and then suddenly he was like, I have to go back to Brazil. And I was like, well, I'll finish my university studies. Thankfully, I finished my university studies, and I will come out and meet you. And we'll take it from there. Which, in one way, I think I was 22 years old. In one way, it was brave, but maybe also very naive.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to say stupid, but it was kind of very naive, because I just thought, you know what? What have I got to lose? Like, I'm going to go and discover a whole new country.
Right.
I'm going to learn Portuguese. I'm going to do everything to make it work, basically.
Yeah. Right.
So that's what I did. And I did learn Portuguese. But it was really different there, because I just got really confused I thought it was cultural differences. I just thought, wow, it's a really big culture shock. I'm multicultural myself, and I've lived abroad, and in Europe, maybe not, different continents. So I thought, oh, it must just be me.
Right.
It must be me. I keep needing to fix this. I need to be the one who understands better.
Right.
I don't get the cultural norms. And there would be really strange interactions with his friends I was like, well, in my culture, you speak to your boyfriend's male friends because it's normal, right? Having a conversation is a normal thing. But if I spoke to his male friends when we were together in like a social situation, he'd be angry, or he'd give me silent treatment, or he'd like, it was just really hard. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's inappropriate here.
Right.
And I kept, rather than questioning him and going, why the hell are you telling me that I can't speak to people? Which obviously to me now is like, I would never even stand for that.
Right.
And somebody else telling me the same thing, I would say, have you stopped to think about why he's saying this, rather than just accepting, go, oh, wow, yeah, I'm the stupid one here.
Yeah.
So clearly my self-esteem and my self-worth was pretty low anyway. And it just got more and more eroded because of this behavior, this, insidious chipping away behavior of kind of, these big alarm bells, to be honest.
Right. Right. So fast forward to what you describe as the worst year of your life, which was 2013. Were you still out of the country? This also happened in Brazil?
No, so actually by 2013 we'd moved back to the UK, and we'd moved to London, and I don't live anywhere near London, so for anyone, so I'm not in London. It's quite far from where I am. So it was a bit of a funny move as well, because I'd been working in my hometown, we'd been living with my parents, and things got a bit difficult with everybody. And then I ended up losing my job because the reasons were that I wasn't committed enough, but actually he made it really hard for me. He made it really hard for me to keep my job. And so then the move to London was because he had contacts in London. He was a tattoo artist. He is. And he was like, I've got a job there. So I thought, well, whatever. I'll get a job in retail. I'll get a job wherever I need to do.
Right.
I'll find a Christmas job, because we moved just before Christmas. And I was like, I'm sure I can get a job in any shop in London. Sure. It's big enough. So that's what I did. And it basically really escalated from the time we moved away from my family. It was already bad, having moved back home, but I was really, really isolated. I'd pretty much cut most of my friends off. I had like a couple of best friends in London who I barely saw. And I was really, really underweight because I was so stressed and I was working long hours. And I did a lot. I mean, I'm lucky. I still have a very positive relationship with food. I've never had a problem with food. I eat very healthily. It's the Mediterranean background, maybe. Like I've always been fine. I don't eat my emotions, essentially. And I was trying to eat more, I was like looking on blogs on weight gain, like for people who are like skinny and want to gain muscle and stuff. And I was like, you know, eating peanut butter and banana sandwiches like 3 times a day on top of the food I was eating. And I was like, why am I so thin? Why don't I put weight on? I went to the doctors, and that's what the problem, to check my thyroid, as in it was so obvious that the problem was I was unbelievably stressed. And at this point, the violence really, really escalated. And I just wasn't really, I just wasn't seeing it. I just was denying everything. So I was working.
Sorry to interrupt you. What was so you've led us through some of these behaviors and some of the control entering into your life. What was it like the first time it actually got physical? Did it start off with little things, or was it like a big explosion? What happened the first time?
That's a very interesting question. So there was verbally a lot of put downs before there was anything physical. So there's quite a lot of like, verbal put downs and kind of small digs, and, you know, quite consistent. But at the same time, in front of other people, he'd speak really greatly about me. So it's very confusing. So then I was like, oh, I'm not really sure. But the first time it happened, he actually strangled me because he thought that I had lied about, he'd been away on a business trip. And this is in my hometown. He thought I had hidden something from him, or been with a guy, or that was it. He hated my my only other male colleague in the school that I was working in, and he was like, "You're lying to me." And I was like, "No, I promise I'm not lying to you." So then he took to my neck and was really pressing, and I just had tears rolling down my cheeks, and I was like, "I'm not lying to you. Like, you have to believe me." And he then was like, "Oh, I believe you because, you know, if you were lying, you wouldn't have reacted like that." And I remember thinking, God, he really needs help. Like, I really need to help him. It's really crazy. I didn't think that what he did was worth, like, me just going, get out of my house. You know, it was really, I'm still shocked at how I just thought he needs help. Which was terrible, really. So it was kind of, it wasn't like, you know, screaming and shouting. It was like really, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. Like, and I was like, it's okay. You know, I know that, you know, I try to be understanding and compassionate, and I just swallowed it and dug it, really just hit it, and was like, that didn't happen.
Buried it. You buried it.
And then, so that was the first time he laid his hands on me.
And
pretty awful.
And how long did the physical and verbal attacks on you go on before you finally broke your silence?
So I would say that I suppose it was like 2012 when that first time happened, and then all of 2013. So really, from when we got to London, I remember from like New Year's, my birthday's just after New Year. It was just, in fact, it's funny. It's not funny. I have blanks in my memory because it was so bad. So I worked in retail, and we had to wear these like short sleeve t-shirts. And because I came in as a temp and then I got a permanent job, my other colleagues had long sleeve t-shirts from when they'd worked in prior years, and I didn't have them. And I remember having a colleague and just being like, "Oh, I really need to borrow your long sleeve t-shirt because both of mine are in the wash," and being desperate to hide the bruises on my arms. Like, it was sustained, and there were some days I had to call in to work sick because I was working on a makeup and skincare counter, so you're like front, like facing, and I had like bruises, bright lights. I had like bruises in my ears, I had bruises on my neck, I had bruises on my eyes, and I didn't have enough makeup to hide it. I ended up researching when you have rosacea, which is like a reddening of the skin, you have to use this like green makeup to hide it. I had tried to buy some so that I could hide the bruises because they were green and black. And there were some days I had to call in sick because I just couldn't hide them. So the violence, it was from pretty much until the whole year that he was increasingly more violent with me. And like I said, there are times when I just have blanks. I don't know. I have memories that come to me of things he did to me. And I don't know why. Or I don't know why he did them, or I can't, there's no beginning or there's no middle, there's no end. And it's quite, for the time after, that really frightened me to have these blanks. It was really traumatizing. Yeah, it was really, really traumatizing to go, I don't remember what happened to me. That's scary. Really, really scary. So I would say until I broke my silence. So I was in London for the whole of 2013, and then he broke his collarbone in a motorbike accident, which you'd think, I thought, oh, now's my opportunity to show him that I do love him. I'm going to look after him. He's going to see. He keeps telling me that I don't love him, but I do. And then it just got even worse, and you'd be amazed what somebody with a broken arm can do to you.
Wow.
He perforated my eardrum. He would spit in my face. He would like pull my hair out. He would still hit me. And we had to go back to Brazil because of his arm. And he was like, I can't work. I need to go back to Brazil. I need to be with my family. I don't want to spend winter. We couldn't afford to stay paying rent with me basically not working because I was constantly off. I was about to lose my job again because I'd been off too much.
Sure.
And they have disciplinaries. They didn't ask me what was going on. And they just said that I was calling sick all the time. So then we had to go back to Brazil. And I really, 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 really didn't want to go. I was like, already starting to think. I'd called up Women's Aid, which is our national domestic helpline, national helpline for domestic abuse here in the UK. That was
about to be my next question is when you actually started thinking about leaving.
So it was around summertime when I was like, hang on a minute. I've got bruises all the time.
Yeah.
Something's really wrong. This isn't right. Which maybe some people watching this would be like, God, how stupid was she? Or how can you even not realize? But when it's so scary, and you're so stressed, like psychologically and emotionally, that you're just trying to survive. And you just like, surviving means walking the dog, getting to work on time, don't lose your job, pretend everything's fine all the time because you're so ashamed. You're so it's so shameful to think, oh, I'm university educated from a nice family. I shouldn't be so stupid as to, tolerate this.
Right.
So it's very shameful. So I started to think, and I started to look online, and I was like, oh, maybe I remember searching for a, not psychopath, but which I searched later, people who are insanely pathological jealousy.
Okay.
That was the first thing I searched for, pathological jealousy, because I was like, he was insanely jealous about. I couldn't look. I had walked with my head down. I couldn't look at people in the street to cross the road because I was looking at a man.
Wow.
It was so crazy. And so I looked at pathological jealousy, and then I started to read about relationship problems, and then I started to realize that it was saying the words abuse, and then I started to look at and I started looking on YouTube to see videos, and I remember seeing a really famous video of an American lady. She's got like, I don't know how many millions of views, talking about domestic abuse, but she was a businesswoman and she had a gun held to her head, and to me, I couldn't relate, and I was like, oh, that's not me. Like, that must not be. That's like not what I'm experiencing, and so therefore it must not be that. And again, like, that's kind of denial because there were so many similarities.
But you were looking for the differences as opposed to the similarities, right?
Yeah, I was, and then I started to like think, okay. First, I called the Samaritans. I'm not sure if you have that. It's basically like a helpline for anybody, but also for people who want to commit suicide. And I didn't want to commit suicide, but I just didn't know who to call.
Sure.
And then I thought, after a few more weeks of searching hidden, I thought, okay, I think this is abuse. So I should call the helpline for domestic abuse. And I called them a couple of times, and they can't ever tell you what to do. But they said, and they asked me, and I said to them what had been happening physically. And they said, okay, our alarm bells are ringing because I'm not sure if you know, but even if you don't pass out being strangled, you can have brain damage. Like, you can have serious damage affecting you, and that can happen after. Like, you can be seriously affected by being strangled after it's happened. And that really scared me. So then I thought, okay, I started to try and defend myself and say, this has to change. You can't do this to me anymore. I'm not standing for it. But it was just kind of pointless because I hadn't said anything to anybody else. I was on my own, basically. And then when he had this accident, and then I was like, I'm going to leave you. I don't want to go to Brazil with you. He was like, oh, you're abandoning me in my time of need. So then I was like the worst person ever, because he was like, how dare you, after everything I've done for you? I moved to your country for you. I've kept you, in this not lovely house, but I've done all these things for your family. I like really, really laying into me how an awful person I would be to abandon him when he was injured. And I would say this to the helpline people, and they were like, how old is he? He's in his 30s. He can look after himself. Yeah, right? Like, obvious. And I was like, oh, but he doesn't speak English that well. So what? He can get by, right? He's got friends. And was he not working? He can ask them to help him. And I'd be like, oh, I can't do that to him. And they're like, why not? And like now, stepping out of it. Of course. But I was terrified. I was really terrified, because then he'd say, well, it was like, he was like, oh, so then you have been cheating on me. So then there is somebody else. It must be that. That's why you want to leave me. Not because of him. So it was really like mind games, really crazy mind games. And then I did end up going back to Brazil with him in November. And it was just awful. I was writing in my diary at this point. I'd started to write, because I hadn't even written a diary, and I was like starting to admit it to myself. And sometimes I look back on the diary and I'm amazed at what I was going through. And I started to be like, this is what he's doing to me. This is what he's done to me. Like, I need courage. Like, I need him. I need to leave him. But it was just, again, I hadn't said anything. So then end of 2013, going into 2014. So we're in Brazil still. And he's not being physically violent with me anymore, but they're still put downs. His family have realized what's going on. It was all kind of, I was like, maybe things could get better. But then they kept not being better, because he kept being jealous, and I couldn't even speak to his brother. I mean, if I helped his mum put the washing out and his brother's underpants happened to be in that wash and they were clean, and I happened to hang them, not even knowing that they were his, he would go crazy. Like, it's insane. These are examples I'm pulling out that are just to show how insane it was. Then at one point, we moved away from his family and into a main city where we'd lived before, and when there was an international airport, and I thought, okay, I'm closer to the airport now. I'm not near his family. I don't need to say goodbye to anybody. I'm not 7 hours away from the international airport. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm close to doing this and speaking to someone. And it was a really funny weekend. It was a Friday that I'd been for a job interview, or a potential amazing job came up in a language school, which would have been amazing. And then I spoke to my auntie on Skype, and she saw me jump when I saw the door go. And she goes, are you afraid of him? Like, no one had asked me this question. And I was like, oh, actually, yeah, sometimes I am. And she just looked at me and was like, has he hit you? And I said, yeah, he did. And then that was it. It was like just really simple, direct. And she was like, you have to get out and you cannot tell anybody. And at that point, it was like the whole family knew. And it was my cousin at the time was working for the UN, and she was like, I can get you on a flight. And in the next, like today, just leave everything, just go. Right. Suddenly my family knew. And then that subsequent weekend, like that Saturday, Sunday, I told a best friend by email, and then I Skyped another best friend and said what had happened. And I didn't go into any details. Sure. I just said, look, this has been happening. My life has been hell. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, right. but I've told you now, and now I can't go back. Like, right. It's open. I've said it. And for me, I knew deep down that once I said it,
yes,
it would be the beginning of the end.
Sure.
I couldn't say it and then stay.
And then not do anything about it. Right. Right.
Yeah, I couldn't say it and then not do anything. Yeah. So that was basically like March time. So that took from July, August, from thinking and Googling to like March, and a lot of stuff happening in between.
Sure.
Before I was like, okay, I'm saying it. Like, it was really, really, really hard to actually open it.
You made a decision, and that is both brave, and some people have messaged you about this decision, but you made the decision to tell him you were leaving, not to just disappear in the night. I would love for you to share how you were able to unfold your plan with him knowing and successfully leave. Because there are a lot of women who I think are waiting for this magical opportunity to disappear. And I do believe there are situations where that is the right thing to do. But I would love to hear about how you were able to actually say, I'm leaving, plan your leave, and successfully leave.
It's a very good question. So the thing that was really complicated for me, which I missed out of my TED Talk because it was way too many granular details, was that I had a dog, and I took my dog with me to Brazil, and she needed a rabies injection. Right. And I did that before I left, but I didn't know that she needed a blood test. So when I found out, I went to the vets and I said, I need to leave with my dog. And they said, you need to wait for 3 months. Because it was either 3 months of waiting with the dog and me staying after having already broached the subject, and I'll go into how I did that, right. Or it was leaving the dog in Brazil, which I wasn't going to do, right. Or it was putting my dog in quarantine in the UK, which was going to cost me thousands of pounds. Right. And I was like, already had no money. I already needed help to get out of the country.
Right.
And so my family were like, we can get you on a plane tomorrow. You can leave tomorrow. And I was like, I can't leave with the dog.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. So it was really like, and some people will go, just leave the dog. Right. But if you're a dog owner, like, she was like
a child.
Yeah, and she'd been through everything with me, and she was, poor little dog, had like seen it all and was like mega traumatized herself from it, and it was like, that was the thing which made me go, I just can't do this in secret, because like, if I could leave in the night I would, but I can't, because I can't leave the dog, which makes it so much more complicated. So,
and imagine the women who have children.
Well, exactly. You know? Yeah, exactly. I mean, a dog is nothing in comparison to a woman who has children. Exactly. So for me it was, okay, right, so these are my options. So I was investigating my options with the dog before I told him. Right. But he knew something was up, and he was like, you know, you're spending a lot of time on the internet, you're not coming to the studio anymore. And I think he could see that something was happening. And, you know, it's quite amazing. I actually cannot recall the conversation. I think I have blocked it from my brain. But he didn't react violently. He didn't react. He reacted in a way which was very, very controlled.
So right,
calculated. So I said, look, I think I need to spend some time with my family. I think I need space. I think that I need to go home. I want to go home. I need to go home. Things have been really hard. I didn't say like, I'm leaving you and breaking up with you, but I said, you know, I need to be away.
Right.
and I need help with Maya, the dog. And I was like, I need time, and I'm telling you because it's going to be complicated with Maya, and I'm taking her with me.
Right.
So the way he reacted was kind of like, I understand you want some time with your family. And then it went from, although the physical abuse had stopped and the put downs were still quite constant, it went from put downs to, hey, let's go out for a really nice meal. Or, hey, thank you for having done this thing. Or, hey, you know what, I'll cook tonight. And, you know, suddenly being like, oh, you look really pretty in that dress. And I don't know, like suddenly, oh, I love you again. And it was like really, and then I'd had this like offer from this job from the school. And I was like, maybe things are changing, because he hasn't hit me and he hasn't, you know, like, and his reaction was really cool, you know, it was really not all what I was expecting.
Part of the trap.
Yeah, completely. And the thing is, and then the other thing I can say as well, I knew deep down, we were in a city in Brazil where he is well known. He's famous in the tattoo scene.
Right.
He had a big ego and he had a very, very, very big reputation. There was no way he was going to ruin that by hurting me, like by killing me, basically. Right. He wasn't going to do it. I don't think he had it in him. But that could be me being very naive, because, yeah, he strangled me. He could have killed me. Sure. He hit me so hard. Like, you know, I have blanks in my memory. So actually, I'll go back and correct myself. He must have had it in him to kill somebody. Sure. But he had his reputation, and that's why I knew I was going to be safe.
Right.
Because the dog, and because he was in a place where his image was so important to him, and was so much more important than anything else. He had to be cool about it, because, you know, that way I was the bad person in the whole thing.
Sure.
And in any other situation, I would always say, do not say anything. It's never, and it was never going to be the right time. It was not easy. Right. And it was so, and I was trying to do so many things hidden behind him.
Right.
Like, and I didn't want to tell him, but I knew I had to, because of the dog, and because I thought there's just no way I can do this in secret. I have nowhere to go. I have nowhere to go in this big city. I don't have any money. Right. I'm stuck, and I know that he's going to be protecting his ego.
Sure.
And actually, they were the biggest reasons why I thought I have to say it to him.
Right. So then tell us about when you left, and if you would share from your TED Talk, your very beautiful poem that you wrote, and then we can start to talk about what life looks like now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting because obviously with the dog and everything, it was all those things which I didn't mention in the talk. It was all about what airline and what day, and, you know, organizing with the freight company for animals, and then with the quarantine on the other side. And basically, in a way, that kind of took up all of my time. And then I started to contact friends and be like, hey, I'm coming back. Don't ask me why. I'm coming back. Like, I started to go, I'm going to start reconnecting already with my friends who had, like, you know, completely cut off. Without just saying, you know, just please don't ask me, but I'm coming home.
Right.
So that, in the few weeks leading up to me leaving, that kept me occupied in the day. And, you know, we still went to the beach, and because we lived right by the beach, and, you know, we still had went out for meals, and things were weirdly okay. But the days coming up, I remember the dog was so stressed. She was weeing on the bed, and, you know, it was just, I just remember her weeing on the bed, and you know, dogs do that when they're so upset and stressed. And and the day I left was just the hardest thing I've ever done. Actually, he took me to the airport with the dog, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried so much, because it was just so overwhelming, and not because I wanted to stay, but it was just, couldn't believe I was doing it. And I can share the poem that I wrote.
Yeah, please.
So it's called I Left on a Tuesday. I left on a Tuesday. Tears fell uncontrollably. They were big, wet, heavy tears. Tears that I shed out of exhaustion, pain, and the sheer enormity of my actions. I was leaving. I left on a Tuesday. Stepping on the plane, I turned my back on it all. I had nothing left to lose. I was zeroed, emptied, no more. I left on a Tuesday. It had taken months to get to this. The courage was built slowly and not always so surely, but enough to make sure I faced this new direction. With each kilometre that passed, I was further away. I would be safe. I left on a Tuesday. When I arrived, it was Wednesday and my new life began.
So incredibly powerful, you know, that all of a sudden you had Wednesday.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you. Yeah, it was.
There's so many women out there that are living in some point of your story, whether it's the beginning point where you're just starting to change your behaviors a little bit. You're starting to lose yourself just a little bit, but you haven't quite figured out what's actually being done.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've been strangled and you don't know what to do. You don't know who to call. You don't know how to break your silence. You're not ready. You know, you're just not ready. And, you know, to somebody who hasn't been in a situation like yours, you might think that it's easy. Like, gosh, why don't they just leave? It's not that easy. I mean, the programming and the disassembling of who you are happens so slightly and so consistently. And all of a sudden, you're not in your right mind and you're not who you were. And you can't make the decisions that if you were fully present within yourself, you could make, because you're not fully present within yourself anymore. So
absolutely,
you are so brave, and we are so grateful that you left on that Tuesday. And I would love for you to tell us what life looks like now, you know, from that Wednesday forward, what life looks like now, and give some women, you know, a little bit of the courage and strength and hope that they need to know that it can get better. So what is life like for you now?
So when I got back to the UK, so I had a big advantage of many miles in between myself, or a whole ocean actually, in between myself and Brazil.
Yeah.
And I'd been so, like you said, like deconstructed. I had nothing left. Like I had nothing. There was like, I was not even a blank page. I was just a nothing.
Right.
And I was just thought, I have nothing to lose now. I've lost everything in the sense of with myself. I just need to reconstruct everything. And all the things I like doing, like singing and amateur dramatics and like even like exercise and just all my interests.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to throw myself head first into everything. I moved obviously back in with my parents. I joined the local operatic society. I started CrossFit. I got an amazing job based on my languages.
Right.
One of them in Portuguese. And okay, it was a job. I'd never worked in a big corporation before, but that's where the job was going, and I needed a job. And you know, I made amazing friends there. I started saving money so I could pay back everyone who'd helped me get out, because I had no money and I had friends and, you know, people borrowing money from me. You know, I've seen a few comments on my videos being like, oh, you know, it was easy for you financially. Well, it wasn't for me at all. People had to borrow left, right and center to help me, and then I paid them all back once I started working. So I just, I threw myself into everything. I started singing again. I started doing exercise again. I started going out and dancing again.
Yeah.
You know, I made friends. I kind of started to process what had happened.
Right.
It wasn't easy. I would say the first 3 years was a lot of doing everything that I wanted to do, but then after the first year, it was kind of an avoidance tactic of just going, that didn't happen.
Right.
I need to focus on what it is like that makes me happy. And you know, it was like I got back in April on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I joined this choir, this really fantastic adult like sort of a cappella choir, and we went to do this Christmas concert at this beautiful big old house in this big park, like a stately home near to my hometown. And I remember like crying my eyes out before, like between the songs and while we were there, and like I was like majorly overly emotional.
Right.
Nobody could really understand why, but I was like, I'm so grateful for my life. Like
Yeah.
you know, it was so simple. I was just singing a concert.
Right.
I was just, you know, it was just for them. They did it every year, and I was crying because I was like, I'm so grateful that I have this nice thing in my life.
Yeah.
Like I just have the opportunity to be myself and to do the things that I love again without answering to anybody. And so like that was a really kind of, you know, strong moment. So then I definitely needed lots of therapy.
Yeah.
So the key to me being like getting better and how things have gone for me has been lots of therapy, because I started to like realize that I was avoiding actually what happened to me, and I could talk about it without getting emotional, and I thought, oh, I must be over it. And then when I started thinking, they were like, wow, that's like major dissociation. Like you are talking about it like you're talking about going to the supermarket. Like you've been through some major trauma and you're not even getting emotional about it. That's not okay.
Right.
You need to get into your emotions again. And I just blocked it all out, which is kind of a very it's a normal reaction to trauma, actually. Sure. It's a normal reaction. But the therapy helped me reconnect with my emotions. In my job, I met my now husband. Mm-hmm. So the job that I got, which I had seen when I was in Brazil and thinking, oh, I need to apply for that job when I get back home. It was the job where I met my now husband. We have a baby together. I've gone and joined some amazing charities. So I work for the Women's Aid charity here volunteer for, I'm a trustee for, it's all run by volunteers, for the local charity, Chester Women's Aid. And I've traveled the world. I have made friends in different parts of the globe, all people who are doing amazing things to help others. And it's all because I started to believe in myself, and I started to go, I'm worth. And actually, everything I've done in the last 5 years, I have created. I have built it because I could. Yeah. I just said, I have, like, no one is ever going to tell me that I can't do something ever again. Right. Like, no one's going to tell me that I'm not good enough. No one's going to tell me that I can't. No one's going to tell me that, you know, don't bother. And you know, who do you even think you are? And I don't mean you need to think in an arrogant way, but I'm like, I am worthwhile. Yeah. I can do what makes me happy. That's okay. And I think just being so ferociously like, no one will ever take me away from myself again, ever. That's right. Has just made me go, I can do it all. Like, I can try everything. I can be happy. I can. I just can. Yes. And you have, and you are. And it's your story is so emotional and so powerful. And, you know, I'm just beyond honored that you shared yourself and your story with us. You know, if there's one woman that got an idea or was able to put something in her toolbox, you know, for being able to free herself from the nightmares that so many women are living, you know, it's worth it to keep sharing your story. And thank you for using your voice for good.
and for being a guest with us here on our Facebook Live. We'll be posting it in YouTube and also on our podcast. So share with our audience how people can stay connected with you. You know, do you have a YouTube channel or your Instagram, however you want to connect with people after this?
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm quite shy on social media. But thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me, for giving me yet another platform to share the story. And, you know, I really feel honored that you asked me. So thank you very much. I really, you know, and all the work that you're doing is amazing. You know, it's really, really cool. So thank you. But social media wise, I have an Instagram. I'm not massively active. I'm quite shy with, you know, saying too many things, but I have it open. It's there. And like professionally, I have a LinkedIn. So I'm happy to connect with LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm mainly Instagram user, I suppose. I think with Facebook, I'm a little bit, it's more kind of friends and family and things, but my Instagram is open, and yeah, I'm still working on the
excellent. Well, I want to read you a couple of comments that have come in. We've gone a little over our time, and I know you have a little one, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But let's see. So Shelby says stress really does have that trickle down effect into physical health issues. So that's from when you were talking about, why am I so thin and I can't gain any weight? And it's crazy how incredibly powerful stress is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very understandable to have those blanks in memory. It's not stupid. People who haven't been through it will never understand why you don't leave. They have to stay in control and will say anything to make you stay. Mental abuse is just as bad as physical.
Absolutely.
Helen says, such a brave story, Chiara, and thank you so much for sharing and that you're amazing.
Oh. Thank you.
And Lisa says, your story and your bravery is so similar to so many. And thank you for sharing your story and that you are truly an inspiration and that you're so brave and they're so proud of you. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We will definitely stay in touch with you. All the love and blessings in the world with your newborn. Is it a boy or a girl?
Little girl, yes.
Fantastic, wonderful. Well, congratulations to yourself and your husband on that little girl, and for you just taking that chance and turning that Tuesday into a Wednesday. Very powerful. So thank you again for sharing with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, Chiara.
Bye.